I've never told anyone what happened to me under the baobab that night, and I'm not sure I ever will. The memory of the Phantom Band lives in me though, in the quiet moments when I hear the old songs carried by the wind. I think back to that night, and I realize now that I wasn't just an observer. I was a part of it. I was meant to hear their song, to feel the power of their music, and to carry it within me. Sometimes when I walk through AKAKPO at night, and the moonlight dances on the leaves of the baobab tree, I hear the faintest echo of their melody. It's as if the Phantom Band is still there, waiting, watching, ready to play for the next generation. And so, I wait too, for when the music will come again. Her ancestors had played for them, passed down the music as a gift, a reminder of the old ways. She said the music was a call to remember the spirits that watched over the village. The elders knew more than they let on. They said that the Phantom Band had appeared every few generations, always when the village needed a reminder, when the people were forgetting the old songs, the ones that tied them to their roots. The music wasn't just entertainment, it was a message, a gift from the spirits of the ancestors. They came to remind us of who we were and to encourage us to stay true to the rhythms of life that had been passed down for generations. I stood there for a long time, trying to understand what had just happened. But no matter how hard I tried, the memory of the Phantom Band never left me. Their song lingered in my mind like a melody I couldn't forget. The next morning, I returned to the village and told no one what I had seen. People had always spoken of strange happenings near the baobab, but I didn't want to be seen as someone who believed in superstitions. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside me. As time passed, I began to notice something. The villagers, especially the older ones, would sometimes hum a tune that seemed so familiar, yet so distant. It was the same song the Phantom Band had played under the baobab. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but then I saw it in their eyes. The same look I had felt when I stood in that clearing. They too had heard it. One evening during a festival, I overheard my grandmother speaking to an elder. She was telling him about a time when she was young, just a girl like me, and how she had heard the same music from the Phantom Band. But her story was different. She said that the band had come to her family in their dreams. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest and I could feel the weight of their presence. There was no fear, just awe. The song they played was one I had never heard, but it seemed to call something deep inside of me. It was both beautiful and haunting, like the voices of my ancestors rising from the soil itself. The air around me grew still, and for a moment I forgot where I was. It felt like I had entered another world, one that wasn't bound by time or space. I wasn't sure how long I stood there watching them, lost in the music. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. All I knew was that I was filled with an overwhelming sense of peace, as if the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. The music stopped. The baobab tree, which had felt so alive a moment ago, stood silent, its massive branches swaying gently in the breeze. I looked around in confusion, but the clearing was empty. There was no sign of the band, no trace of their presence. I stepped into the clearing beneath the baobab, my feet slipping on the wet earth, but I couldn't see the band. No instruments, no performers, just the music, filling the air, as if it was coming from the very tree itself. Then, something strange happened. In the middle of the song, I saw them, the musicians. They appeared as if from thin air. At first, just shadows, but then their forms became clearer. They were dressed in garments unlike anything we wore in AKAKPO, robes that shimmered under the moonlight, their faces blurred, their features impossible to make out. I remember one of them held a guitar-like instrument, and another played a flute, but none of them spoke. Their music was their language. The music. Soft at first, almost like a whisper in the wind, but unmistakable. It was coming from the direction of the old baobab tree at the edge of the village. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The sound of strings, gentle, rhythmic. A flute too, with notes so high and sweet they seemed to float in the air. The air around the tree had always been strange. People in the village said it was a place where spirits gathered to dance, but I never paid much attention to such tales. That evening, however, the music was so real, so alive, it made my heart race. I followed the sound as much out of curiosity as the need to be sure I wasn't hearing things. The closer I got to the baobab, the clearer the music became. It was unlike anything I had ever heard. There were no instruments like those we used in the village, yet the sounds were familiar in a way. It felt like home. It felt like something from my ancestors, yet so far beyond my understanding. I grew up in a small village called AKAKPO, tucked between the hills and surrounded by thick forests. Life was simple in our village, and like most people, we lived close to nature. There was a rhythm to everything. the seasons, the harvests, and the songs we sang as we worked together. But it was always the music that held us together. Music was the pulse of AKAKPO, from the daily drumming during work to the sweet harmonies of the elders that carried into the night. But one thing I remember most about AKAKPO is the band, the Phantom Band as we came to call them. It was a rainy evening, the kind where the clouds hang low like they're hugging the earth. I had just returned from the village square, having helped with the market preparations for the coming festival when I heard it.